All right, people, we got some real breaking news for you. Actually, we got a couple of pieces of breaking news, but let's go with the HBAR stuff first. The CEO of HBAR has resigned in disgrace. He is stepping down today, August 31st. Now, I was really high on HBAR about a year ago, maybe like 10 months ago, but I've soured on them in the last 6 months, but not because of this reason. I didn't know what was going on internally, but I soured on them because they weren't concentrating on their DeFi, which is like the same reason I soured a little bit on VeChain, on Cardano, even though I like those still a little bit better than HBAR. But now this has happened. I'm obviously completely out on them, but I've been souring on them for a while because they've had the technology and the network to actually like really bring the DeFi stuff up, but they really haven't done it and their price hasn't done so well because of that. So I've soured on them, but now I probably wouldn't touch them at all right now. Even though I don't think this will be fatal for HBAR, it's definitely not a good look. Why did the CEO step down? Insider trading. There are rumors, and I can't validate if they're true or not, that he made up a fake partnership with BlackRock. And on the day the partnership news came out, he sold millions and millions of HBAR. So he obviously used that to benefit himself, to pump up the price, and to make millions of dollars. And if that's true, obviously he needs to be prosecuted for insider trading, and not even insider trading, just for blatant fraud, because he basically lied, and he is the CEO, so he's an insider. So you have an insider lying to pump up the price so he can sell at the top. Now, that's even worse than an influencer, way worse. That is the CEO. You don't want that to happen. At the same time, HBAR also kind of like fired their YouTube ambassador, and the YouTube guy actually posted on his YouTube channel the thing. So I don't think he was aware of any of this stuff. And I don't think he was like aware of the fake BlackRock partnership, but the CEO might have been actually using the YouTube influencer to perpetrate his purposes without the influencer knowing, because the CEO tells you, hey, there's a BlackRock partnership. We as YouTube influencers, we're going to take that as like, you know what, the CEO is probably telling me the truth. We're not going to be like, oh yeah, the CEO is a scoundrel. He's lying to me. He's making up a partnership. We're going to be like, oh, that comes straight from the horse's mouth that there is a partnership. And so we're going to report it. So he might be just using the YouTuber as a tool. And, you know, like since like, you know, you reported it already, like once they fire the CEO, they probably want to fire the YouTuber too and like just start afresh, even though it may not be the tuber's fault. So HBAR is in a pretty bad position right now. They're going to appoint a new CEO to replace him. I'm not really sure what they're going to do in the interim, and it's going to take a while to wash all of this off, if ever. Now, the thing about this is like the HBAR price hasn't really plummeted, at least not as the time of the recording of this video. HBAR in the last 24 hours, I think, is holding pretty steady. It hasn't really gone up, but it's holding pretty steady. It's only down 0.62%, not even 1%, holding at 5.1 cents. So if you want to get out of it right now, you haven't actually lost all that much. Yes, it's down since it's high, but every coin's down since it's high, unless you're like in Bitcoin or something like that. So basically, HBAR is done about the same as like pretty much most other smaller coins. You're not really losing much if you sell out right now. I'm not really sure why this hasn't really affected the price. It might be that like, you know, they can just appoint someone else as CEO and it's not a big deal. But it also might be because it is Friday night. Although like the news actually came out like 9 hours ago, like in the afternoon, I believe. So like maybe because we're going to Labor Day weekend, or because it's a weekend for the rest of the world and a holiday weekend for the United States, people haven't like seen this news and they haven't digested this news. So there is a chance that it will actually dump a little bit after this. I'm not really sure. This news is fresh, I think, like from like, I think maybe like at most a day ago, but most people probably didn't know about it until like a couple of hours ago. And I'm just telling you this news right now. So HBAR, really not looking that great right now in terms of like there's internal corruption, and corruption at the highest levels, so much that the CEO had to step down. If he gets investigated over this, this might actually make all of crypto look really, really bad. So I'm not really sure if that's going to happen or not. I don't know if HBAR is big enough of a project, and like I don't know like how much money people actually lost because of this, because HBAR like price didn't really go down, but like, making up fake news and then selling on the news, definitely not a good thing. And yes, a lot of the HBAR people are happy that this guy is gone. Like just these allegations are going to be enough to make anyone step down. And if these allegations are real, then even more so. And it looks like to me, at least at this point where there's smoke, there's fire. So I am glad that this guy is stepping down. But yeah, probably would not buy HBAR at this point until this stuff gets resolved. They put out like a public statement or something like that. So that is a big scandal in the crypto world. HBAR is not blockchain, it's DAG, but that doesn't mean there aren't scandals involving its CEO. So watch out for that right now, especially if you are super bullish about HBAR. I still think the technology is pretty good, honestly, but the CEO thing does actually set them back a little bit, at least a little bit, if not more than a little bit. So the other thing I wanted to mention, obviously, is the big news for today, and that is X is banned in Brazil. Now, it was one of the Supreme Court justices in Brazil that banned X. And the reason he banned X is because he wanted X to appoint a legal counsel in Brazil. But Elon Musk did not do so. Now, Elon Musk had a very good reason not to do so because, like they were threatened. And I think if he appointed someone to be their legal counsel, they would have gotten arrested immediately by this judge. So there was very good reason for Elon Musk not to appoint legal counsel. However, it is a little bit strange because the judge, I do not think is from the ruling party. The judge essentially is like he's prosecuting political opponents because those people actually, I think, said something bad about the previous president, which is a little bit weird because the previous president is the one who lost this election against the current president. He lost 51-49. It was a very, very close election. I think it was heavily disputed. So generally, like if you say bad things about the previous guy, you don't really get in trouble. If you say bad things about the current guy, then you get in trouble. But I don't really know what was actually said. If he was just like bad mouthing the previous guy, that means he's like bad mouthing like the former opposition leader at this point. So, because like I know like the election in Brazil was really contentious, but I guess if he was like hyping the previous guy up, then I could actually see why like the judge would actually want to arrest him. Either way, it's a really bad look for Brazil because he is basically just banning political dissident, regardless if like it looks weird or not. Regardless if he's like supporting the opposition party or supporting the ruling party, and like the judge is actually from the opposition party or something, it looks really bad. And this whole thing has gotten to be just like a really, really big mess. And I think the justice was just pissed off that Elon was basically giving him the middle finger at this point. So I don't really know what's going to happen. Obviously, like they're afraid that other countries, if Brazil succeeds in banning X, they're afraid that other countries like the EU, the UK, Canada and other countries will ban X as well. But I don't think that's going to happen because the political process and the court process is actually very, very different in those other countries when compared to Brazil. Brazil is much more of like a dictatorship country than those. You have a bunch of opposition parties like, in France, like Marie Le Pen, like, she's not in jail. She's well and out, and she is very much anti Macron, and she is allowed to say pretty much whatever she wants. And I don't think she's going to allow Twitter to be banned in France. Now, there might be some restrictions or whatever, but it's not the same thing. And this is way worse than Durov's case, because Durov, he actually like refused to actually take down child pornography once like child advocacy groups actually pointed out to him where, and this is the Telegram guy I'm talking about, when child advocacy groups pointed out to him where the pornography was. This is just like straight up Brazil banning because like a judge didn't like specifically what Twitter did or something like that. And it was because of a political reason. So two very, very different situations there. And I don't think X would actually get banned, X, Twitter, or whatever, would actually get banned in like the EU or the UK or anywhere else. But Brazil is a very, very special case, and it does make them look extremely bad. And definitely not like PR that you want if you are Brazil, because people are saying like they're basically absolutely nuts for banning X and Elon Musk. And like Elon Musk had already said they're like basically halting their operations in Brazil on August 17th, but they would actually have their services remain for their members in that country. But obviously the court or the one judge actually said differently. Now, on the macro analysis, the stock market was obviously up today due to the earnings, but crypto didn't really budge. So it's not like crypto is just exactly following the stock market. I do believe we'll be okay this weekend, but people are just really anticipating a rate cut. And I do think the numbers that came out today for the PCE numbers show that inflation indicator only increased 0.2% by July, and the PCE was only 2.6 as opposed to the projected 2.7. So it was actually much softer than expected. And because it's much softer than expected, I do believe the Fed's even closer to a rate cut. I do think the market is 100% expecting a rate cut. And I do think after the rate cut, we will actually go down a little bit because a lot of people in the market are expecting 50 basis points, and I can almost guarantee you that Jerome Powell is only going to cut 25 basis points. So after they're a little bit disappointed in the smaller rate cut than they expected, I do expect after the 17th, the market's going to go down a little bit, but it will rebound by the end of September. And September, I think, has another bullish event for crypto in the September House hearings that crypto is going to get. What are the House hearings? Basically, like the Financial Services Committee is going to grill the SEC and Gary Gensler. They're going to question their regulation by enforcement, as well as like the crypto pig butchering thing, but that doesn't really interest me as much as what like Gensler is actually going to say to these people. I think he's going to get grilled pretty hard from both sides because there have been Democratic House members that have come out and criticized Gensler pretty hard on his regulation by enforcement, especially on his NFT quest that he's actually issued OpenSea a Wells notice. So I think like this is going to shred the SEC's kind of like authority over crypto. And they're already talking about giving the CFTC more power over crypto, which means shoving the SEC aside. So Gary Gensler's reputation is going to take another hit. So this is all coming in the second half of September. I do believe September 10th is the first hearing, but I don't think that'll be the big one. You'll have another more important one where the SEC will actually get grilled on the 18th. And I think the most important one with a full committee hearing is going to be September 23rd. I don't think Gary Gensler is actually looking at that. And like I said, I do think they'll like set regulations up for crypto, and they'll set regulations up so that so that the CFTC actually has a lot more power, because the courts have started to rule that it is the CFTC that actually has jurisdiction over crypto rather than the SEC, at least most of the coins. Like Telegram and stuff, like that's still in SEC's hands, but if you're talking about Cardano, Solana, and a lot of the coins that we're actually talking about, they're going to fall under the jurisdiction of the CFTC instead of the SEC, as well as all exchange coins. I mean, that means like, all coins that are traded on exchanges will actually be in the jurisdiction of the CFTC, because they've already ruled in both the Ripple and the Binance case that secondary markets are not securities. And Ripple's lawyers have actually voiced very much skepticism in whether the SEC is actually going to appeal or not, because if the SEC appeals, they do actually risk losing the other part of the case that they actually won. And they must be calculating like, hey, is there a bigger chance that we'll actually lose the institutional case or win the retail case back? And since other judges have also already ruled on the retail part of it, that's going to make it harder for them to actually overturn. So there's a very good chance that the SEC does not actually appeal the Ripple case. And if they don't appeal the Ripple case, they're not going to be able to overturn the Binance case or anything like that either. So there is a lot of that actually coming into play right now. And that's something that we do need to be aware of. The legal hurdles are all stacked against the SEC at this point. All the judgments are stacked against the SEC. They have actually won very, very few judgments at this point. And because of that, they're kind of like up a creek without a paddle, which is basically exactly where we want them to be. And they're going to get hammered really, really hard, both reputation-wise and just for answers at this next House committee meeting. Patrick McHenry is not running for re-election at this point, and he's the one that's actually ramming this through the House, so he really wants to get it done before the end of the year. Chuck Schumer, the Senate Majority Leader, also wants to get this stuff done before the beginning of the year, before the beginning of next year. So they're really rushing to push a bill across that will actually get some clarity for crypto regulations, which is what we all want. And I think they're going to be very loose in those regulations because both parties want the super PAC money. And the super PAC has actually given money to support both parties in their candidate races. So they don't want to piss the crypto super PAC off. And because of that, they're going to be very, very nice to crypto from now on. So that's the news for today. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe. Hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.